Hello and welcome to all top 5s. I've taken a look at some creepy haunted objects from around the world, but I didn't include any dolls, so I could make this video instead. Dolls are made in our own image, and this could be what seems to attract the curses, possessions and hauntings to them more than to a lot of other inanimate objects. Here are 5 cases of such alleged cursed dolls. Number 5. Joliet. Joliet is an unusual doll. That's because she's remained in one family for several generations, spanning more than 100 years. Despite the alleged curse, the family insists on keeping it close. All we really know about the identity of Joliet's current owner is that she's called Anna. Joliet was brought into the family when Anna's great-grandmother was given the doll as a gift from a friend of the family. Anna believes that the friend who gave her great-grandmother the doll was jealous of her and that a curse was born as a result, with the doll at its centre. The great-grandmother, who was pregnant for a second time when she received Joliet, gave birth to a boy, who sadly and unexpectedly died a mere 3 days later. Years later, when the next woman in the family, that's Anna's grandmother, gave birth to a son, he too passed away 3 days after he was born. This also happened to Anna's mother, and even to Anna herself. In each instance, the woman who owned Joliet would also have given birth to a healthy baby girl who wasn't affected by this curse. Ever since Anna's great-grandmother lost her son to the start of this curse, she would hear crying and screaming coming from the doll in the dead of the night, which she knew belonged to her dead son. When her own daughter lost her son, the doll took his voice too, seeming to cry with 2 different wailing babies' voices at the same time. This happened twice more, and now Anna hears 4 babies crying in the night, coming from Joliet's case. This is why the family refuses to discard Joliet the doll. They believe that these cries mean the 4 dead infant boys' souls are trapped inside Joliet, and so the doll should be cared for as their sons would have been, were they alive. Knowing your daughter is going to give birth to a son that will die of the curse is a heavy burden to bear, and Anna truly believes this. Who knows? What's for sure is that Joliet seems to be at the centre of this mystery. Number 4. Mandy. This doll is kept in Quesnel Museum in Canada, to which she was donated in 1991. She's over 90 years old, made of delicate porcelain, and is thought to have come from Germany. Mandy was owned by the woman who donated her for many, many years. She used to keep the doll in the basement in a box, but even so, she often heard Mandy crying in the middle of the night. The woman told the museum about this when she donated Mandy, warning them of her nature. It was when she joined the museum that ghostly things became even more prevalent. Museum employees began reporting footsteps when there was no one else around, and people kept finding their lunches hidden in random drawers in the museum after they'd placed them in the fridge that very morning. Pens and books and other items would also go missing, and oftentimes were never found again. This is all thought to be the doll. Mandy was kept separate from the other dolls because of her mischief. She would apparently knock them over or damage them, causing a mess. For this reason, Mandy has her own display case on the other side of the museum. Another alleged display of paranormal activity surrounding the doll is that of malfunctioning electronic equipment. It's said that it's difficult to photograph or video Mandy because she somehow messes up the footage and equipment, causing many photos taken of her to come out blurred or not at all. People who have seen Mandy in the flesh, or in the porcelain, claim that her eyes follow you, and sometimes she blinks. No one has a reasonable explanation for who or what could be haunting Mandy the doll, and it's another creepy mystery just left unsolved. Number 3. Letter. This one seems to have some slightly shady facts and different versions, so take this story with a pinch of salt. The doll, however, is very real. Back in 1972, a man called Kerry Walton was investigating an old, supposedly haunted house. Quite why he was there and rooting around beneath the floorboards isn't clear, and that's where the story varies. But he suddenly came across an old doll with a creepy-looking face. He took this ugly thing home with him and kept it, still owning it even today. He gave the doll the name Letter and found that some strange things began happening around it. It would move around the room it was kept in by itself, and if left in a certain position, when Kerry looked back, it would have shifted in its place. It even has an effect on things around it. When Letta is brought into a room, pictures hanging on the wall often fall off without any explanation. Animals will usually be very, very wary of the doll, attempting to either attack it or run away from it whenever they see it, and people who come into contact with it claim to feel overwhelming sadness and fear. Finally, and most strangely of all, when Letta is taken outside, it's said that it will often rain, even when the weather forecast didn't predict it and it was an otherwise fine day. Some really weird and spooky stuff, but what's the story behind the doll? Well, it's believed that Letta is over 200 years old and came from Europe originally. More specifically, it's said that a Romanian gypsy had made the doll for his son after the son had sadly drowned. The spirit of the dead boy is what Kerry believes haunts the doll to this day, which would explain the sadness and fear that people feel, and may even hint as to why there's a downpour when it's taken outside. I wish I could confirm some of the claims about Letta in this video, but I just can't. Even so, it's definitely a very, very creepy doll. Number 2. Annabelle. You may well have seen the recent horror films The Conjuring and Annabelle. These movies were based on the real-life case of the Raggedy Ann doll, Annabelle. In 1970, Annabelle was bought as a 28th birthday present for a woman called Donna by her mother. Soon after receiving the doll, Donna found that it would move around her apartment by itself. The creepiest bit for Donna was when she began finding messages written by the doll on parchment, which Donna didn't keep in the house. She went to a medium who analysed the doll, and she claimed that the doll was indeed haunted and it was the spirit of Annabelle Higgins, a 7-year-old girl that was trapped inside. Donna tried to accept and live with this explanation, but one day Annabelle allegedly attempted to strangle Donna's friend. This was the final straw, and Donna contacted the famous Ed and Lorraine Warren, self-proclaimed demonologists who travelled the USA, studying and exorcising paranormal and demonic entities. When the Warrens studied Annabelle, they agreed that she was haunted, but not by a human spirit. They claimed that the doll was possessed by a demon, and a dangerous one at that. The Warrens performed an exorcism and took the doll away from Donna's apartment. They claimed that Annabelle's exorcism hadn't worked properly though, as on their way home with the doll in their car, their steering and brakes failed, giving them a near miss. Eventually, after several nights of Annabelle escaping padlocked cases, the Warrens built a special glass case especially. It joined all the other cursed and occult items in this locked room, which is now available to visit as an occult museum. Annabelle has never escaped her case since, but the demon's curse seems to live on. I say this because it's said that many visitors to the museum who taunt the doll bring horrible luck and accidents upon themselves soon after leaving. Annabelle is a really scary doll, but her infamy is topped by only one. Number 1. Robert the Doll. If you know anything about haunted dolls, you'll most definitely have heard of Robert. A handmade, large, unusual-looking doll at 40 inches tall, Robert wears a 20th century USA sailor's outfit. He is also unique in that he is stuffed with wood wool, and he originally had his face painted similar to that of a jester. Robert was initially owned by a young boy called Robert Eugene Otto, and it's thought that the boy, actually known as Gene, was the model on whom the doll's image was crafted. Gene and Robert were together throughout Gene's childhood, and he put a lot of emotional attachment into the doll. He would also blame Robert whenever he got into trouble. Years later in 1974, Gene had died and his house was sold to new tenants, who would often hear footsteps in the attic. One plumber working for these tenants had heard giggling and was shocked to see that Robert had moved entirely across the room by himself as his back was turned. A reporter named Malcolm Ross described one terrifying moment as he was discussing Robert when he went to visit him. As one of his companions made a flippant comment about Gene, saying that he was a fool, Malcolm was horrified to see Robert the doll's facial features move and his expression became one of rage and disdain. He said, "There was some kind of intelligence there. The doll was listening to us." Robert came into the possession of an older woman, Myrtle Reuter, who kept him for 20 years before donating him to the Fort East Martello Museum, claiming he was haunted and he used to move around her house by himself all the time. When the museum took Robert in, they noticed a serious change in atmosphere. As soon as visitors began to come and see the doll, their electronic equipment began to malfunction and people reported a presence that they just couldn't explain. It's said that bad luck follows those who taunt or cause offence to Robert or his late owner, Jean. Indeed, the museum gets countless letters from previous visitors who want to apologise to the doll for their bad behaviour, asking for his forgiveness. For a single doll to have such a massive effect on people's lives and hold such anger towards them seemingly, it's extremely creepy. Especially when there's never been a proper explanation of who or what resides inside Robert the doll and its purpose. And that's it from all top 5s for this week. Dolls definitely seem to creep me out more than other haunted objects do, and whether it's voodoo, ghosts, demons or a curse, I don't care. I don't want to visit any of them. Have you had any experience with a haunted doll? Either one of the ones I've mentioned or one of your own? Let me know in the comments. When posting in the comments, please do be polite and considerate of other people's opinions and beliefs. Let's all get along. If you've enjoyed this video, please do click on the like button because it does really help me out. You can subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button for a new video every Tuesday. That's when I release them. So, peace and love to each and every one of you, and I'll see you all next time on All Top 5s.